Welcome back, boys and some girls. The Outer World 2 is fine. Technically, it's fine. It has everything inside of it. The problem is that it's flavorless. It feels like the developers simply followed the how to make an RPG checklist, but kind of forgot about, I know it's cliche, but the love part. There is a story, one that plays out pretty much as you'd expect it to play out. There are choices, although most of them barely leave any mark on the story aside from a very short clip at the end. The environments, they all look different, but none of them really stand out. And even when the game lets you act like a bad guy, it never truly lets you be one. You're less of a villain and more of a grumpy hero, saving the day just with an attitude. I'll be very upfront with you. Usually when I play games, I listen, I pay very close attention to what's happening in the story, but this one made me sleepy constantly. So I'm really not up to speed with what the story is about. So unlike usual, I won't be calling out too many plot holes, even though I'm pretty sure I found some. With that being said, I will mention some ways and situations where the game actually makes it very obvious that it lacks any real depth. So let's start with the obvious storytelling, and if it wasn't clear, spoilers ahead. So I want to start with the very first mission you do, the tutorial. When you start the tutorial, when you just launch the game, you get told you need to do a mission briefing with Agent Augustine de Vries. Everybody is French in this game, I don't know why, they're all French. And when you listen to her, the way she talks and how she acts, and when you proceed a little bit later on into the quest, it is pretty clear she's gonna betray you. It's the most textbook betrayal of textbook betrayals.
It is imperative we retrieve this unsealed core and escape this station.
Yeah, I'm coming. I mean, I don't trust you, but I don't see another way to do any of this. Then nothing can be more obvious than that. And surprise to nobody, she betrays you like a few minutes later. You could bring up the sarcasm counterpoint right here, but I'll explain later on when we finish all the examples. Let's move on to example number 2. When you go, I think, to the second or third planet, there is a man that is a distressed man. He is kind of crying for your help, and he says he needs help with his wife and child. And obviously the wife and child are over there in the shady corner with the high grass and cover. So surprise to nobody, I shoot him, I go to check out, and yes, it's another ambush. Funny enough, they actually say the line. They say that you ambush their ambush. It's kind of funny they acknowledge it. For the third example, I actually want to give a companion quest example. This one comes with the companion Asa. When you go to the second planet, during your exploration, you probably will visit a building and you can hear screaming all throughout the building about somebody screaming, release me, release me, release me. When you go up and you find out, turns out it's an NPC called Asa. She joins you if you want to, and it turns out there is a kill order on her by her own cult. Her own cult actually wants to kill her and she doesn't know why. So in order to find out why, you have to do a series of quests. Now, during one of those quests, you actually talk to one of her friends. She decides to meet with him, and once again, it is pretty clear that this is going to be a betrayal. I'm going to be showing you all the clips of me, obviously, like seeing this like a year ahead of this happening, so just so you know. And yes, we meet him, and surprise to nobody, it's an actual ambush. So this is a trap!
Yes.
Wow! Who could see this coming? Who wrote this? There's no way it's on ChatGPT storylines. This is so bad. And for my last example, this one is going to be a little smaller, but it's still the same point. It's about the Sovereign. The Sovereign is actually the leader of the Protectorate, which is a faction in the game. And they're basically kind of like religious nuts. And the Sovereign is like their god. Now, one of his consuls for this Sovereign guy actually pushed him into a mental asylum, a place called the Mental Refreshment, they call it. And in the story, it's being portrayed as he just went to take a vacation. He just like, you know, quickly gonna get himself fixed and he's coming back. But when you play the game later on, when you get actually to the last level, you can read the document that says that it was intentional, it was a coup, he wanted to take his place as the Sovereign, as the strongest guy, and that's pretty much it. Now, if you have a brain and you ever like did something in your life, you can think for yourself. It's super clear that this one is obviously he just wanted the power. So I don't know what they're trying to do here. Now, all of these things I just mentioned and I showed, none of them sound sarcastic when they're being told. It's not like Borderlands, but it's pretty much clear that yeah, they're being sarcastic. If they were being sarcastic, then sure, I would laugh at it and we move on. But that's not what it seems like. So there's two options. Option number one, they think we are stupid, and option number two, they are actually stupid. All of the story's big reveals are super easy to spot. You can see them, as I said, coming long before they happen. And I don't think it would be this much of a problem if the choices you made in the story made a difference. But they don't. No matter what you do, things end up the same. Again, apart from a very short clip at the end that is just there to remind you that you made choices at all. For example, when you launch the Vox Relay, you have three options. You have the option to leave it as it is to go into Fairfield. You have the option to change it to go to Westport. And if you have the correct stats, you have the option to send it to space. Now, my Let's Play, I did not have the stats. And one of my companions asked me to move it from Fairfield. And it was super easy, just like boop, click. So I did it, because who cares, right? And I thought there was going to be like major backlash and something is going to change. But nope, nobody says anything. Only the NPCs. I don't even think the NPC said thank you or anything. Nobody at Fairfield cared at all. Westport, there was only one NPC near Westport who said something, and you can only meet this NPC during one of the missions in one of your companion's side quests. So it's so niche, and it's only like one sentence he says. It's nothing more than that. It's so minute for nuking a city from orbit. There is zero backlash to things like that. Now, to give you another example, during, I think, the second planet, you meet a faction called The Order. They're a bunch of Neil deGrasse Tysons who love math, probability, just calculations, smart persons. And they have a monastery. I don't know how this works, but they have a monastery. And when you go to the monastery, there's a situation, I'm not going to explain too much, but you need to clear the monastery. And during this mission of clearing the monastery, you're met with a dilemma. You can either save hostages that the big bad boss actually like put in a press or something, and you don't know what's going to happen. The boss will leave, the boss will become stronger, you don't know what's going to happen. And if you don't, you can just leave the hostages as they are and go to fight the boss immediately. Now, I chose to do that, but nothing happened. No repercussions, nobody says anything about this. Only one of my companions said like, hey, don't feel bad about that, that's not your fault, it's his fault. I mean, I know it is, but that's the extent of what happened. Now, if you want to look and see what happened to those NPCs, you can. You just specifically have to look out at a specific window once you come back out after this entire fight and this clearing the entire place. So as I said, no consequences. Number 3 is going to be about the end of the game, so if you don't want any spoilers, you might want to skip a few minutes forward. The third example is about who is going to actually close the rift at the very end of the game. You can choose from yourself, one of your companions. It depends on how you played the story up to now, but it doesn't matter who goes to close the rift because nothing is going to change. The only thing that's going to change is one PowerPoint presentation slide, you would call it, I guess, like 5 seconds of some random guy over narrating whatever happened to this person, like, oh, they gave their life away, something like that. It's not like after the cutscene is over, you're back in the game, but the NPC is missing. You no longer have this companion with you. And this would be like somewhat of an impact. It's small, but it's somewhat of an impact, right? I know it sounds like it's something small, but it's just there to show you another example why there are no consequences for the things you choose to do in this game. Choices don't really matter. Now, sadly, this lack of impact is very much not limited to only your choices. It goes into the way the game tells its story and how it builds its world. You can feel there is an effort in the game, I'm not saying there isn't, but everything kind of feels off. For example, take the presentation of certain events. When you go to certain places or when you do certain quests, certain events, something, you will be met with a text box instead of an actual animation, an actual dialogue choice. Nothing like that. There's just going to be a text box in front of you that describes the event that's happening instead of just showing you actual events. So I, for example, chose to do something with the crab, and instead of actually showing me feeding the crab more like purple weird cereals, it just said that I did that, and it said that the crab puked everything out, and it said that the crab got up. What I visually saw was the crab staying still and then the crab moving. That's it. And I saw, just as I said, a text box. Now, if this was a text-based RPG in the year 1997, I wouldn't say a word. But This is a AAA RPG in 2025, adventure story game. Instead of just showing me what happened, you just show me a wall of text. The rest of the game is animated, cutscenes, voice lines, everything. So why would you do this? It kind of feels like they just threw something in there to have a little bit more content. And then there is actually the writing logic, which sometimes very much feel like nobody actually read whatever they wrote. It was like ChatGPT or something for the entire story. At one point, the villain in the monastery place I just mentioned with the hostages, the villain over there actually gives the player the code to the elevator by accident, and it's super dumb because all of the enemies are already at the monastery because they're kind of undercover. Then they just flip a switch and they turn to be the bad guys. Now you might say, okay, so but more enemies would want to come up the elevator and maybe help them or something, more bad guys. They can't, because below the elevator there's an entire city with a metric tons of guards and people, and the elevator is in a central place. Nobody can sneak into the elevator, so it's purely for the player. That's what I'm saying, it's super dumb. Now another aspect of this is the side stories and your companion quest. They don't fare much better. Every single one of them revolves around you. What is your choice, your validation, your dramatic moment. The game never lets you just witness the story just being unfold. It's just like it's afraid to let you sit in the passenger seat for even a minute. Take for example a game like Hell Is Us. Hell Is Us is probably my game of the year. It's a game that only lets you be the passenger. And sure, it works for that game because that game just shows you history of a place. This game is about choices. You're making the history. Now I get it. I'm not saying it should be the same thing. What I am saying is when you want to show me companions evolve, companions grow, you want to show me character development, you need to let the character develop. You can't have me being the arbiter of everything, me being the admin of their own life. This way, it kind of feels like they're just a PNG, that once I turn the game off, everything just stops. And I know it is, because it's a game, but when you think about Fantasy World, when you think about games like that, when you think about games like Skyrim, places like that, they live beyond you. They have their own life, they do their own thing. And when everything is revolving around the player, it just feels like a theme park. It's not a world you want to live in. And finally, there is the RP part of this RPG. There is no real RP in this game. You can play as the good guy saving the galaxy, but being grumpy, you can't do that. You can't say, nope, I'm out. You can't say, how about we do this? How about we do that? You can't really do those. You can choose multiple ways to reach to the same ending. And I don't know why they do that. I kind of found it in the last few years, it's a trend of games to not give you the option to do bad things. I really don't know why this is, and it might be something I want to explore further to understand why games don't want you to do bad things. The only option usually you have is just don't do the quest. So there is an option to help this guy, but you don't want to help them, you want to do something else. Nope, just don't do the quest. That's it. Now, if you want to do that, sure. I mean, I guess technically it's still an RPG because you're still role-playing, but it's like different flavors of the same ice cream. You're doing the same, just in slightly different ways. I wouldn't call that like a real RPG. All the issues I just mentioned, they all pile up into one game. Now, when you think about this game, when you start playing, it should offer you things like the freedom, how to play however you want, the depth, the personality for the characters, but what it ends up actually playing like is frustratingly safe. After all this story talk, you'd hope that the gameplay might pick up the slack, and to be fair, it kind of does. It's not breaking any new ground, but it's decent enough to actually keep things moving, and even it manages to be a little bit better once you're deeper in. Now, just like any other game, we have stats, perks, guns, companions, backgrounds, armor modifications, weapon modification, inhaler modification, and in short, we have a lot. And when you start out, this can be slightly overwhelming, but don't worry, a lot of it just don't matter. I, for example, forgot about the inhaler modification for the entirety of the game, and I only noticed right before the final boss fight, if you can even call it a boss fight. All of these features will be very obvious if you played the previous game in the series, or if you played any RPG in general. It's all pretty much self-explanatory. Things start off a little bit rough, but they eventually settle down into a very comfortable rhythm. The controls are tight, the animations sync well, every button press feels deliberate, it is not clunky, just a little bit overwhelming at first. There's a fair amount to keep track of early on, but after a few hours, the inputs and everything just feels very natural. Combat has real weight to it, sometimes a little bit too much, and landing shots can feel satisfying, especially when you realize that headshots can solve most of your problems. Body shots barely tickle, but clean critical hits can drop almost anything in one hit. It's fun at first, though it does start to become a little bit too easy once you've got some time into the game. Enemies start as pure sponges, soaking up entire clips before going down, but as your weapons and skill improves, the balance tips hard in the other direction, and by the time I reached the latter part of the game, I felt way too powerful without really trying, overleveled just from playing normally. That being said, not every fight kept the rules consistent. The Sir Willy, which is the boss for the monastery fight, is a good example. Up to that point, destroying the helo drones that NPCs have meant shooting at the center of the colorful orb. But now suddenly you have to shoot under the colorful orb to actually do damage. I know it's a small change and it might seem like a nitpicky thing, but it feels awkward and unintuitive compared to what the game has taught you to do so far, and it's just another example of what I think the game is not really fully thought of. Exploration and gunfights share a very similar pattern. It's repetitive, but it's not bad. There's something that is oddly relaxing about clearing rooms and taking your time to pick up everything inside of them, even if the loop never really changes. The main frustration for me came from your companions, who have a very bad habit of just stepping right in front of you at the worst possible moment. And more than once I actually lost the fight simply because I could not get through a doorway that my companions decided to block. Overall, it's a strange balance. It starts off slow and demanding, but then it turns to be smooth and almost too forgiving. It's never really bad, it's just a little bit uneven. It's kind of like a song you only like the chorus of. On the technical side, the game has its issues, not saying there aren't. Enemies love to wander out of bounds. Occasionally they fall through walls and floors. Some cutscenes come with an invisible weapon bug. The saving system are a very strange problem that after about an hour of play, the game just suddenly refuses to save until you quit and relaunch, which led to quite a few frustrating repeat sections when I had to replay something again because I forgot to save manually. Aside from these annoyances, I also did experience the occasional screen freeze, but nothing that crashed the game or completely broke it. Overall, the game is technically fine. It ticks all the usual RPG boxes, but it never really leaves an impression. The story has all the pieces. It has twists, betrayal, choices, and your dramatic moments, but most of it is simply predictable, shallow, or inconsequential. Your decisions rarely matter. Side stories put you at the center of everything, and the role-playing aspect is mostly an illusion. You can act grumpy, but you're still gonna be the good guy who saves the galaxy. Gameplay starts a bit slow and overwhelming, with a lot of systems and stats to keep track of, but eventually everything comes together, it's fine. Combat has weight, controls are tight, critical hits makes you feel powerful, sometimes too powerful, although some frustrating design choices like the boss fight inconsistencies or the companions blocking doorways, all of this kind of keep it from being flawless. The exploration and combat loops are very repetitive, but they are oddly relaxing, and the technical side of the game has its issues with the glitches and the saving problems, although nothing truly breaks the experience. In short, the game is not bad, it's certainly competent, but it's also safe, predictable, and it lacks any real spark that would actually make this game memorable. It's a solid RPG that feels like a checklist of features rather than a wall that truly wants to pull you in. And the bottom line, I won't remember anything about this game in a few days, less in a few weeks, and nothing in a few months. And with that being said, hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, thank you. If you didn't, let me know why so I can improve it. Thank you for safe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.